More than half of all companies globally are family-owned or operated. Family businesses contribute 70% of the world's GDP and account for 65% of jobs. Their voices are important. Their stories must be told. Brought to you by the award-winning publication, Tharawat magazine. This is the Family Business Voice with your host, Ramia El-Agami.
As a sixth-generation leader in his family's meat processing business Compaxo, Michael van der Post walks a virtual tightrope. He must honor 5 generations of his family's business legacy, while at the same time ensuring Compaxo's sustainability with forward-facing strategy. Headquartered in Gouda in the Netherlands, Compaxo can trace its roots back to 1896, when Johannes van der Post opened a pork butcher's shop. Since then, Compaxo has grown into one of Europe's most successful pork processing operations. Today, Michael van der Post is one of 13 shareholders tasked with guiding the century-old operation through the era of digital disruption. On this episode of the Family Business Voice, Michael van der Post and I discuss his early memories of the business, motivating the next generation, and adapting to a rapidly changing industry. Enjoy this episode with Michael. Usually, when you ask a family business how old they are, there's a straightforward answer. But as we've just discovered when we started talking together, actually, the answer to how old your family business is actually not entirely clear. So it might be, we're in a range, I believe you said, between 100 and 125 years. Tell us where you guys are at right now in deciding which anniversary you're soon going to be celebrating.
Yes, it's obviously not really clear when everything started. So it's more or less also something like a mythical story. But throughout the years, we have always been communicating 1921 as the official starting point of the company. But we were always aware of the fact that the first butchery activities turned out to take place far around the half of 1800. Recently, we have been starting with, in terms of celebrating our 100 years anniversary, which was actually planned in 2021. We turned out to some kind of a surprise that we discovered a fact that it is even possible to claim 1896 as the foundation year of the company, since a company which is assisting us with historical data has found some evidence that we started in 1896 by registering in the Dutch Hinderwet. I'm not sure how it's called in English, but this is more or less a description in government terms, which was common in those times, that companies were registered for founding there. Yeah.
So you can trace it back all the way to that moment in time, it's just an incredible achievement, of course. Like we all know, It's actually beating the odds for so many generations for any family business is very hard. So that's the official registration date. But you know that your family has been active in this industry for that long and for longer, right? Like how much do you all know from the family side, from the storytelling side? How much do you know from your great-grandfathers about the founding story of the company?
Well, for now, I'm actually can be considered as a 6th generation family member. So actually my, how do you call this? The 6 generations ago, they started with butchery trade. And the story those times was that during the summer days, the owners of the company or the entrepreneurs were working as painters. And in the winter, they were working as butcheries. And that's more or less due to the fact that during the summer days, there was no money or equipment on chilling and freezing the meat products. So that's more or less the thing. And then the so-called 2nd generation took over the company at the end of 1800, passed it through to his son, which could be considered as the so-called 3rd generation. And his son, together with his 3 sons, started with producing on a bigger scale, which has probably been done after the Second World War. So around 1948, they started with producing industrial scale processed meat products. So that's actually been done in the factory where we still are located today. the company expanded farther and farther. And so on, around the 1970s, my grandfather and his generation also started with a slaughterhouse due to the fact that they were able to guarantee of the most important resource, which was namely fresh pork meat, to be served as an input for instance, sausages, bacon products, ham products, and so on. And that's more or less the story until my father with his cousins and his brothers took over the company. They also expanded the company farther towards one of the biggest major players in the Netherlands. And recently, around 2019, my generation took over the company. So that's more or less the story and the timeline when it comes to passing over from generation to generation so far.
That's incredible. Because I mean, 6 generations, let's face it, guys, it doesn't happen every day. It's a really big achievement. And we all know that most family businesses will not outlast the 3rd generation for obvious reasons. Either the industry doesn't work out anymore or the family loses interest, right? Do you both remember the time when you started realizing as children that you were part of a quite considerable business legacy? Was there a moment of realization, or was it just always part of your lives?
Well, my father never pushed me to work in the company, more or less stimulated me to be independent and work on my own study, for instance. But yeah, it was for me always quite clear that I was part of something bigger, and I wanted to be part of this bigger thing, which is expanding the history. Also, by the fact to be grateful of having the benefits throughout my youth. Yeah, and I was always exposed to the fact that it wasn't a part of the family. Since a child, I was coming with my dad sometimes to the office. Later on, during my school holidays, I started working within the factory just for a few hours. It was more or less something in which I grew up with, so that's more or less the thing. And I think it's more or less the same for the other kids in my generation.
I think another reason why a lot of family businesses can't make it to this point, right? Like, is that, of course, with every generation, you have more family members that get added, sometimes to the shareholdership, or more family members that, want to get involved in the business. And sometimes there's conflict and people can't agree anymore on the way forward. So you mentioned briefly before, you touched upon the fact that already your father took this on with his brothers and his cousins. So you already had quite a lot of family members involved. Explain to us how it works today in Compaxo. So how many family members are involved, and how does the ownership structure work that you are today so healthy and so on track with the continuity of the family business?
Yeah, at the moment we are working with 13 shareholders. So yeah, how do you get everything in harmony? That's of course not a big issue, but big challenge it is for sure. We just recently started, but I can see the future with trust. I think the roles of the family members are quite clear. There's also room for ambition for everyone, which is also a strict rule in the statutes of the company, is the fact that everyone is forced to work in the company at least to be shareholder. So I think this is also very important for us to keep the attention and keep everyone sharp and involved and committed. I think that's for now something which is really important to be done, and make everyone attracted to the same way. Yeah.
Do you guys have like a certain amount of experience that someone has to have before they join the company, or like are there rules in place as to how you even if you're a family member, do you have to apply to the business to be hired, or how does it work?
No, I don't think it's that bureaucratically organized for our generation. Most of the people started working directly after high school of my generation. Others did their study first, or also gained some experience in internships at other bigger companies within the food industry or other related companies. But we do not have strict application rules on this.
When you guys started out, like as the 6th generation, like, do you talk to each other about like, what is the thing that you as a generation want to add? Or is it more to your mind, Michael, or to yours, Irene, as well? Like, is it more to think about what you personally want to add to the family business that matters to you? Or is there like a coordinated effort as a generation saying like, oh, well, the 6th generation should I don't know, example, internationalize the company or something like that? Is there something like that in your minds?
Yeah, I can't speak for my other generation members, but I think we have a common goal at least to expand more internationally. This is also a result of how the market evolves. I can see in the local market in which we are, especially for the processed meat factory, mainly national focused, that we are working in a declining market. That's
Mm.
something we can't deny. So internationalization, from my point of view, is more or less more a must than a choice.
Hmm. So you've managed to stay not only in business for 6 generations as a family, but you've also managed to stay pretty much in the same industry. I think there's been some vertical integration. You've expanded into like provisioning, etc., and the supply chain has definitely expanded for you. But the industry around you, as you just said, like has changed a lot in the Netherlands and also in
Yeah.
other countries around you. Can you tell us a little bit more about like, what have been sort of like the most recent sort of like real changes that you've seen in the industry and in the demand that are now like pushing you towards innovation in the next phase?
Yeah, that's clear. I think it's also something we can't deny that the popularity and market for plant-based alternatives and meat substitutes is growing and growing.
Mm,
So this is also something in which our generation took the drive like 5 years ago to start with research and development on these types of products.
mm.
And I think that this was as a good stage because nowadays we arrange from the processed meat factory that almost 5% of our assortment is gained from meat alternatives.
Oh, wow, already. Okay. I find it fascinating that you started so early into the plant-based trend. So
Yeah.
that must be a great advantage for you today. So where are we with that kind of science? Like, how optimistic are you in that becoming like a significant, part of your business? What is your prognostic at this stage?
It's hard to translate this into numbers, but yeah, for me, it's clear that at least the flexitarian lifestyle is getting more and more popularity and
Mhm.
will not disappear that soon. I think, on the other hand, that meat consumption is never gonna disappear, but might be that it will turn into, for instance, a different consumption moment, or that consumers are will getting more value and respect for these type of products, and that it's not a must anymore.
I feel like family business members or generations that are being put in charge now, you're being dealt like a very interesting set of cards, right? Like in the sense of, well, we're in the fourth industrial revolution, so very strong digitalization trends. And, we've all grown up into a globalized economy that was globalizing faster and faster. And now we have a pandemic, which is just the cherry on top of the ice cream, really, I would say, for all of us. What kind of leadership do you think this is going to require? Because it feels like now we have a combination of factors where, yes, we can still go to the older generation to ask for advice, but quite frankly, there's no precedence to what is happening right now at the same time. So, where do you seek advice now? Where do you go get the wisdom to understand all of these factors coming together, what that means for Compaxo? Like, is there any sort of like conscious search for advice or search for like, counsel that you engage in as a generation? Or are you just feeling like, what, guys, this is really unprecedented. We have to figure this out on our own. This is where we have to sort of like discuss this and find our way forward on our own because there's nothing that this compares to.
Yeah, that's a good question. Of course, the older generation is always available for advice. We also are planning in a structure like that once in the so-called 3 months or something, or several months. The old generation comes together to point their view on the situation. But I think it's important to learn from them, to listen to their advice. But it's also part of the entrepreneurial spirit to get our own ideas growing. And
Mm,
we are more or less the credible proof of a new generation, which is also very necessary in this industry in which we are in.
mm,
There's a lot of pressure on the industry for sure. So that's something which we also need to consider from our own eyes.
mm.
And furthermore, more advice. It's hard. Yeah, listen to the employees, of course. That's always important. Of course, customers is one of the biggest stakeholder. Yeah, learn from your suppliers. that's more or less how we need to do it. Keep your eyes open. I think that's the key issue for every entrepreneur.
When you talk to, your contemporaries in the sixth generation, do you share similar hopes of the future of Compaxo? Like, is there something that you're like, oh, wow, it would be really great if we would become synonymous with, this and this and that. Is there anything like that at you strive, or is it more like, what, we just want to be here at the end, in the next, we want to add another 50 years to those 125. And that's the main goal, is to continue existing.
I think that's a clear objective for sure. We do not calculate in quarters. We calculate in generations, and that's the hope for the future as well.
Fantastic.
And furthermore, of course, the ambitions. It's hard to compare yourself with other companies, but I think most important common value that all of us have is that we are not here to keep the situation as it is, but of course to do better than the earlier generations did. And that should be the driver, and we'll see where we end.
Trying to be more innovative and more modern, I think, also.
Yeah, I think what the earlier generation did very good was focusing on operations within the industry, so more efficient production and so on. But I think nowadays, especially when digitalization is getting more popularity, I think it's also important to focus more on the outside of the company. We also have the ambition to get a better image of the company, create on marketing, more or less business to business marketing. We do not have the ambition to become a real consumer brand or something like that. We are, as it is, more or less always a private label producer. But I think it's important to focus on being more visible for the outside.
Yes, exactly. And I think especially after so many years in business, it's important not to forget to remind people that you're there, right? Like, so people get used to you being there. So it's probably good to give them a refresher saying, like, we're still there. Whether you're 100 or 125, like, I think it's both numbers are very impressive. And
that's something that we want to emphasize. I think it's also quite special in our industry to be a 100% family-owned business, and also of so many years. So we appreciate the platforms like today to spread the word. So
Absolutely, and we look forward to your next 100 years, and hopefully like to interview you again in the future. Thank you both very much for talking to us. Thank you for listening to the Family Business Voice. Subscribe to our channels now on iTunes, TuneIn, Stitcher, or Spotify to be notified of our weekly episodes.